Y'all, I had just went live, and unfortunately, because the door opened and I touched my webcam, apparently I broke the webcam or some stupid something. I don't know what happened, but I'm going to cover this topic on a clear mic. So, luckily, we had got two of these webcams when we got it the first time. And so I'm just going to go again. I'm just going to, basically cover the same topic. If you were just here for me covering said topic, you're encouraged to stay, but you're welcome to leave. And welcome to the Inner Storyteller. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Soul Expression. Hit the link tree for my new book, The Inner Storyteller, as well as all of our other work. Please like the video and subscribe to the channels. And I say channels because the Ufuluchild YouTube channel, as well as the Inner Storyteller YouTube channel, is how I'm simulcasting this show. If you're here, we talk about the Inner Storyteller. What is the Inner Storyteller? The Inner Storyteller is, in my opinion, the third seat in the hierarchy of consciousness. Okay, if you have the creator first, as the zero seat. Then first you have awareness, the space that has no quality. Born from awareness is the seed of consciousness, which is the I am, the beingness that knows it bees. And from the I am, we give rise to the inner storyteller, the mechanism that goes beyond observation into meaning making of what it observes. And that's what we deal with here. So if you are in for a discussion on natural law, religion, the school system, like today, money, anarchy, and or culture, and the way that mankind is manipulated by ridiculously evil forces of the world, then you are in the right place. And I hope you enjoy it here. Take a seat, put on your seatbelt, relax. We'll get you home in just a jiffy. Also, we are not bashing faith systems here, even though I will probably touch on how much of a role religion and organized religion plays in every episode in the manipulation of the masses. We are not bashing faith systems, and we are not calling anybody stupid for having faith systems on this YouTube channel. We are simply examining the psychological affects and effects that the stories we live our lives by have on society, while also re-examining the current human condition, which is the condition of slavery. Government is slavery, ladies and gentlemen, in any way that you slice it, in any way that you look at it, government is indeed slavery. So the first thing that I want to do is actually pull up what I was just looking at, because it's super relevant. So nice. Oh, and I found a YouTube short. So we're just gonna dive right in. Let me share my screen and then add it to the stage. You gotta go back to StreamYard to add it to the stage. Here we go. All right. Yeah, I guess I can't change how we look at it. Here we go. Check this out. This is right on topic for our discussion on how, government schooling is the religion of government. Watch this and we'll get into it.
Asking students to read a specific sentence and then to tell them what they've comprehended out of that sentence. And boy, the kids are struggling.
Read the Inner Story for me.
She wore a suit, clothes that were... Who's this for? Extraordinary, but somewhat Gertrude?
No, explain what that means.
I don't know.
She wore a sahalat of clothes that were extraordinary, whatever, bro, but somewhat gooch.
What does that mean?
She wore a lot. Wait, she wore, bro, I don't know, bro. Can you take the card back, please?
She wore a... Oh, baby. She wore a silhouette of clothes that were Bitch, I don't know that word. I don't even know how to read. I don't know why I did this.
She wore a silhouette of clothes that were extraordinary, but somewhat gauche. All right, now what does that mean?
I have no idea. Like his clothes was nice or something like. She were a. I don't know what this shit say. I don't know what this shit say. I don't know what this shit say. I can't read it. Can't read it. Can't read it. Cancel back.
Now let's take a look at the sentence. The sentence is she wore a silhouette of clothes that were extraordinary but somewhat gauche. That's the sentence that they're being asked to read, and not a single one of them could get from start to finish.
Not a single one. Not a single one. And he's also made other videos with other sentences that have one or two sophisticated words. And extraordinary does not count as a sophisticated word. Silhouette, you get a half a pass for. Gosh, you get a pass for. That's fine. Gosh. But not knowing extraordinary is pretty bad. And then not being able to, off of context clues, the one guy that actually read the sentence all the way through. But then he said, now tell me what that means. And he said, I have no idea. It's like, bro, like how bad does it have to get before we can acknowledge the truth? Let's get into it. Well, we don't think, ladies and gentlemen, we do not exercise the brain muscle. We do not exercise discernment, and we do not exercise our ability to expand our mental capacity. For some reason, we don't take it upon ourselves to master the art of thinking. We don't have focus, right? TikTok brain, drugged up on antidepressants and or over the counters and or hard drugs, illegal drugs. And then our food, our water, our air is all poisoned. We have all of these factors working against us, and we are not fighting in any real meaningful sense against the larger systems that birth them, that birth the situation, the circumstance, the human condition of slavery, current human condition of slavery. And that is because behind all of it is religion. Okay? And now I'm not making a claim that your favorite organized religion is the organization behind all of these decisions. No, it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, well, first of all, what is religion? Religion is defined in my work and on this channel, and what I believe is the real true definition of the word, as any belief system that has the potential to steer you away from or tie you away from truth. Religion comes from the Latin root religare. Religare means to tie back, to thwart from forward progress. Basically, that which ties you to, beliefs that are not truth aligned, that do not stand up to logic and testing and proof. Anything like that is religion. So therefore, the belief in government is religion. The belief that government is legitimate, right? That's a religion, and it has its own rituals and all of these things that 99% of the population of the whole world engages in. The religion of going to eat unhealthy fast food all the time, that's a religion, right? The religion of telling yourself that these behaviors are okay to just do. To know better and not do better, you have to form a religion around that for yourself and adhere to it. Now, the premise of today's discussion, religion as defined in the Inner Storyteller is not limited just to churches. It's any system of belief that is sustained by ritual authority and the suppression of questions. Okay. And by that definition, compulsory government schooling is one of the most complete religions ever constructed. That's the premise. Okay. That government school, public school, and charter school, and any school that follows the same basic structure designed by the Rockefellers and whatnot is one of the most complete religions ever constructed. It has its building, right? It has its temple, its place of worship, its cathedral. It has its priest class, its priesthood, its clergy, right? And the principals, the administrators, the faculty, the PE teacher, and the teachers, and the team leads, and the teacher's assistants. It has its sacred texts, right? It's got the textbooks. It's got the approved by the government curriculum. It's got the artwork and the holiday rituals and President's Day lessons and all of these things, trinkets, right? Surrounding the sacred texts, just like the sacred texts of any other religion. And it's got its holidays and it's got its Christmas tree and all of these things. A congregation, right? Compelled audience, a compelled attendance of said compelled audience. And it has excommunication and truancy laws. It's got its expulsion and disciplinary, structures. On top of that, it is common knowledge, as I mentioned before, that the modern school system was deliberately designed to produce a compliant workforce, aka a compliant slave class, and a class of consumers, people who just overconsume all the time, whether it's content or shopping for goods and services. The school system was deliberately shaped and formed to not produce thinkers, to not produce a class of people that will innovate and work together and sacrifice and care enough to actually leave the world in a better place than when they were born. This knowledge is very widespread, by the way. It's not new under the sun information, right? Everybody knows the schools are making the kids dumber. Everybody knows the Rockefellers are behind the textbooks and the design and the way that it feels like a factory, like a factory worker factory, a prison inmate factory, right? It kicks out the inmates and it kicks out the factory workers and it kicks out the the CPAs and the educators, the people that just stay in the school system for their whole life. They just, they go from student to educator, back to student, back to educator for their whole life. Shout out to all the teachers and professors, by the way. Some very good ones that I know. These schools are known to be designed to harm. We know that the harm is actually manifest in the world and that there are real world fruits from the harm caused by the school system as it is designed. And yet the school desks, the seats in the schools are still full. Your kids still go there. That might be a bit of an issue if we are saying that we're working towards a world where we do care about the educational outcomes and intelligence outcomes and moral outcomes of our children. Like this, the moral state of the future aggregate of humanity, right? And the future of humanity is our kids. So if we care about that, then the fact that we know the schools are causing harm and yet they're still full of students, they're still full of our own children, there's a disconnect somewhere. Let's explore it. That gap between knowing and acting is the very apathy that the system was designed to produce. Now, what is the definition of apathy? Let's take a look. What does Google have to say about apathy? Okay, let's look together. Apathy is a state of indifference characterized by a significant lack of motivation, interest, emotion, or concern regarding daily activities, relationships, and goals. Here we go. Finally got it pulled up for y'all. Again, apathy is a state of indifference characterized by a significant lack of motivation, interest, emotion, or concern regarding daily activities, relationships, and goals. It is a recognized neuropsychiatric syndrome, often linked to underlying neurological conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, or depression, rather than mere laziness. Okay? Some symptoms: lack of goal-directed activity, diminished, I'm down here, by the way. Lack of goal-directed activity, diminished emotional expression, feeling numb, reduced social interaction, and trouble initiating daily tasks. Got behavioral apathy, cognitive apathy, and emotional apathy, which is a lack of passion or reaction to events that should elicit emotion. And if that does not sound like the state of the world, then I don't know what the state of the world really is. And I do. And it does sound like the state of the world. A lack of passion or reaction to events that should elicit emotion. Okay? Should elicit emotion. What are some things that should elicit emotion that simply do not, for one reason or another? One of them, I'm trying to pull something up here as I'm talking, and I'm trying to slow down my talking so that oh, it's in this. Sorry. There we go. So that I can keep talking and then it's smooth. Okay, here we go. So we have an example of something that should elicit reaction, that the type of reaction we're getting is not enough. Check this out. Add to the stage. There we go.
Disturb you. If you believe that God's people did this to fulfill something, goodness won. When you look at Gaza, that's a real estate deal being done by very evil people. And I believe they're going to be cursed. I believe they are cursed, actually. Those are not, God's people didn't do that. Don't even think about it. You don't got to know anything other than how you feel when you look at that. When you consider that there are children that are buried beneath that rubble, that is all you need to know. That if this does not spiritually disturb you, if you believe that God's people did this to fulfill something, goodness won. When you look at God.
Yeah, man. That ain't it, right? God's people did not do that. And the fact is, we as a collective, okay, are being tested for how we are going to react to blatant crimes against humanity that involve children in 4K being brutally murdered over and over and over again by the tens of thousands. Okay, on top of all of the knowledge of all of the other war crimes and things going on all around the world all of the time, always being committed by the government, right? Death by government is the leading cause of death in the world, and it always has been. If you are able to stretch the definition of government to mean basically the ruling class, right? Because monarchy, you wouldn't call a king the government necessarily, but we do in this broad, sweeping statement that I just raised that I believe is true. Government kills more than everybody else, especially if you take into consideration the ties between the governments of the world and the medicinal, institutions and apparatus. Now, back to my notes here. This knowledge is all widespread, but the schools are still filled, and that gap between the knowing and the acting, the taking your kids out of these schools, is the apathy that the system was designed to produce. Blah, blah, blah. Now, the thing about this is you cannot accidentally engineer this level of mass compliance. You can't just stumble upon this many blindly obedient people. No, this has to be extremely long and meticulously planned out, extremely well funded, with endless resources, and sustained with a level of excellence and perfection over long periods of time and over various boring stages of development to get this level of mass compliance and mass obedience. It doesn't just happen on its own. Okay? And you may be asking, okay, well, how do we begin to think about our levels of obedience? How do we begin to deal with them, reflect on them, so we can do the shadow work and start to climb out of the holes that we dig ourselves? Well, we got to understand the obedience pipeline, and it starts largely with the schools, right? Children spend most neurologically formative years of their lives being conditioned to go to the temple called the schoolhouse, go to school, sit, obey, raise your hand, ask permission, wait for the bell, nap when I say so, eat faster, hurry up and eat faster, accept the external authority in the teacher as the source of truth. Whatever the teacher is teaching you, that's what's true. Everybody knows this, everybody knows that because the teacher said so. Fear the principal, and on top of that, fear the principal's office. Principal's office. Right? That's not education, people. That's what I would call inner storyteller programming at scale, at large scale, ginormous, humongo scale. By the time that a child in this system becomes an adult and graduates, the obedience to not only, the school system, but government in general is so deeply baked into their being. I mean, it's in a rib cage. It's in our liver. Okay, this conformity bias to be obedient to the authority figures in our lives, that the lived obedience doesn't need much enforcement. Right? Once you reach a certain age, you're pretty automatically obedient to these systems, especially in your words in public. Right? But you'll see, following this channel, I might do some IRL street interview content where I'm talking to people. You'll see how I talk to people about the truth in public, and it's not something that a lot of people do. No disrespect, but we could stand to tell the blatant real truth out in public a lot more, especially in front of our teacher friends and our policeman friends and our institutional slave friends. Okay? Because the obedience lives inside us as if it's common sense. And here's the thing. Parents know. Okay? Parents and guardians know. The Rockefeller story, how the Rockefellers bought and constructed this design for the school system to produce factory workers and prisoners, people that are used to the prison system and just working for the enrichment of the Rockefeller family and other families like it. 1 second, sorry. There we go. My hair felt weird. just for their betterment, pardon me, their advantage, their godhood, lowercase g, um, evil, stance of them basically trying to stand above humanity. We know already. We've known for years. Some of us, we've known for decades, multiple decades, that the Rockefellers and just evil forces in general designed these schools, and yet the kids still are there Monday morning, every day. Don't miss your bus. Eat your breakfast. Don't forget your lunch bag. Tie your shoe. The point is, that's not just ignorance, right? It's not true ignorance. It's not nescience. It's not ignorance by way of information is completely unavailable, right? Ignorance can be fixed with information, but apathy cannot simply be fixed with information. You can't just hear the truth and because apathy is developed over time, and it's a mind, body, spirit condition, whereas ignorance is a mind condition. It's a mental condition. Apathy is mind, body, spirit, right? It's something that's hard to let go of without extreme inner work and time, sacrifice, paying the attention with units of time and effort, right? That's what it takes to actually grow out of apathy and start caring for people other than yourself and other than your immediate inner circle with real world action, caring more than just in rhetoric, but caring with your real world actions. Also, apathy cannot just be fixed with information easily, because the inner storyteller has already filed the information under that's interesting, but I can't do anything about it, right? What can you do? What can you do? I was made this way. I'm just like that, And that comes from the obey, sit, raise your hand, fluorescent lights, all of the school dances play the popular music. The textbooks are full of lies by omission and half truths, and the holidays and the LGBT, and all of the crazy recent stuff, like the LGBTQ agendas playing out in our school systems. Like, just everything comes together in these places of worship, in these places of textbook study, Bible study, right? Government is I'm skipping a note by mistake. The school system, therefore, produced the very apathy that protects the school system in its current model. So it's a closed loop, right? You go through the school, you learn the obedience ritual, you go through all the obedience rituals, you come out of school and graduate a completely apathetic person that is conditioned to respect the authority, and you defend the authority that continues to expand and perfect that model of schooling, and it loops back around until the next person goes through and does the same thing, and when they're an adult, defends the school system themselves. Closed loop. Very unfortunate. And oh, and yeah, the connection to the Candace video is, of course, we have all of these social experiments that we can look to and see that, yeah, and the resulting class of human beings is pathetically obedient, right? Pathetically. We are not acting anywhere near normal in response to war crimes, as well as in response to the various absolute police states that exist in the world, the United States being one of them. That's just a ridiculous situation. We don't respond to the police states or the war crimes. Why? Why not? Why not, Soul? What are we stuck on? Right? What can we chew on that will help us taste the flavor of a solution and really understand how and why we got here? Well, the truth is, government is the dominant religion of the modern world. That's just how it is. It claims moral authority, demands tithes in the form of taxes, promises salvation in the form of health care and, the court system and security and social security. It punishes heresy, non-compliance, sovereign citizens, and tax avoidance, and all of the things, tax evasion, I forget, all of the things. The school system is the seminary for the government system, where the next generation of believers in the religion of government, the religion of man's authority, or the religion of government is a subset, is a sect of the religion of man's authority, which includes tribal leadership, which includes pretty much any type of unnatural hierarchy system, where because I said so and coercion and the threat of violence gives the other person authority. The school system is the seminary where the next generation of believers is formed before they are old enough to consent to the doctrine. And this is how the collective inner storyteller is being shaped at the institutional level to normalize and enable the institution's continuance. Funded by the same sources that have always opposed the shared human objective to one day arrive at more freedom, more harmony, more public trust in each other, more clean food, more healing, more of a healed society, and less transgressions, less theft, less rape, less assault, less murder, and less lying. Okay, less deceit and manipulation. So, what are some of the questions that break the loop? Well, first question I have is, why your kids still in there? Why are the seats still filled? Good people, respectfully. And this is not an attack on anybody. It's a genuine inquiry, genuine, general, gentle inquiry that cuts to the heart of the problem, which is action, right? Why are your kids still in the school? Because here's the thing. You're not going to convince Congress and convince your city and state lawmakers and convince the school board and the trustees to change the system, to stop being focused on producing a working class that will serve the elite. You're not going to do that. And since you're not going to do that, the course of action that comes after trying to go through the front door, so to speak, right? Trying to use the official channels, the established channels of the government to say, hey, we have concerns here. Hey, we have problems here. Hey, this kid died. Hey, whatever. Like, we tried for decades and decades and decades to go through the front door and convince Congress and them and the state legislatures and the school boards and the trustees and the teachers to change the way that they do things. And instead of changing the way that they do things in any meaningful kind of way, they only made, certain concessions here and there, putting an extra hour for art, an extra hour for nap time here and there in certain instances. And the rest of the time, the rest of the game was only advancing their own agendas. So the only action to take after a while is to take your kids out of there. Say, no, Johnny not going there, not there. Right? And when we do it en masse, things change. Okay, so that's my first question. Another good question is, what story is running underneath the knowing that it's designed to harm and that the harm is happening? Kids are getting dumber. Society is becoming more chaotic and less free and more immoral, right? Underneath that knowing, there has to be a story running. What is the story that exists there that makes the knowing feel like it's enough to just know? Like, I know that it's messed up. I know it's been messed up. It was messed up when I went to school. I know that already. So, that's enough. Since I know, I don't have to do, right? Like, knowing better, I don't have to do better. What is the story that we're telling ourselves in the grand scheme of things, right? That results in us normalizing this behavior. I got some comments here. The programming is real. Trauma begets trauma. It's a closed loop. But good thing we have unschoolers and teachers branching out. Yes, good thing we have people pulling their kids up out of there. And then for mamas I have spoken with, often a lack of awareness of options. They can afford tuition for the high quality. Options they can afford. Tuition for the high quality forest and farm unschooling and things. They don't really have capacity to work. And don't have capacity to work and homeschool at the same time successfully. Right. And that notion, that whole game, and I'm going to call it a game respectfully, about, I can't work and homeschool. That only has to do with your conditioning, our conditioning, that by the time my kid is this age, they should know these specific facts, these specific math equations, these specific books or whatever should have been read by the time my kid is this age. And all of that is coming from the colonized brain that's conditioned by the colonizer, because they gave us the standards for each grade level and each grade system. Even though they come up with upgrades to those standards every year, we still get dumber every year. And so, homeschooling is not about keeping up with the standards that the colonizer gave us. It's about educating your child on what they need to get good at, what their natural talents are, what their interests are, and then at least enough that they can manage a household or co-manage a household with a husband or wife later in life. That's education, right? And then they have interests and talents and God-given talents and things that you build on and that they build on. And that by the time they're a teenager, they need to start building on with a friend group and, find a mentor and certain things. Like, it takes a village, right? So I'm ranting a little bit, but there are plenty of real world solutions out there to people who feel like, well, I can't take my kid out of school because I can't work and homeschool them. Yes, you can. Just take out of your mind the idea that school means following the standards of the state test or something. And I think I've covered this topic pretty well. Definitely got some of that energy out that I was feeling from, recording this once and then finding out that the microphone wasn't working halfway through because I barely touched my webcam and the microphone went out. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate comments and I appreciate your time. Please do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channels. It's your humble host, Soul Expression, feeling really, really good. What's this? Right. Starting with 1 day a week at a community farm is an option. We're volunteering. If you're volunteering, you can save some money. Yeah, we know of a ranch and some farms and things that are doing great things with homestead homeschool, education, unschool, get back in nature strategies that are actually making a difference in kids' lives. It's great stuff. So, you know, again, tomorrow is Sunday, so I will not be going live tomorrow, but I will be back on Monday. And I would love to hear in the comments what you guys thought about this discussion on the school system and how government school is the religion of government. And I will see you all in the next one. Peace and love.